Hey everybody, welcome. This is Eugene Licio, and welcome to Forensics Talks. This is episode 8. And today I'm just going to make a couple quick announcements, and then we're going to get right into our speaker. First thing is I'm going to share my screen here. Don't forget that the IABPA, the International Association of Bloodstain Pattern Analysts, is having a conference, and that's going to be November 16th to 20th. They just did a webinar on last Tuesday, and some of you might have been part of that, which is great. But if you want more information, just go to iabpa.org. I will be hosting a photogrammetry for forensics course. This is one that's coming up on October 27th to 28th. This is a course that I've run before, and if you're interested in using your digital camera to collect evidence and create 3D models of evidence, then this will be the course for you. So it's 2 days. It is 4 hours a day and a lot of practical exercises and some good grounding in photogrammetry. The software we're using is called 3DF Zephyr. The great thing about that is that there's a free version that you can use with like 50 photos, which is great. Also, just briefly, so we've been doing this every week now, so this is 8 weeks. Next week, we're going to have to skip, so we're going to be coming back in 2 weeks' time, and that's just because I have a commitment that's coming up that I cannot get out of. So yeah, it's hard to keep doing these every week, but don't worry, we'll be back, and I'll make an announcement next week on who the next speaker is going to be. Okay, on that note, I want to start talking about our speaker. And so her name is Avril Eyewu-Edero, and she's a forensic investigator with over 400 investigations, and she does a multitude of training courses. She's probably run about over 60 training courses to date. She's worked on the identification of victims of the Dana plane crash in Lagos in 2012, House on the Rock church fire in 2017, Friesland Campina fire in 2017, and the investigation of federal agents killed in Nasarawa State in 2014. She has her Master of Science in Forensic Psychology and Criminal Investigation from the University of Liverpool, and she's taken a number of other different courses. She also has her Bachelor of Science in Forensic Science with Psychology from London South Bank University. So on that note, I'm going to bring her in here. There she is. Hi, Avril. How you doing?
Hi, Ian, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about your background. Before I do that, I want to give people a sense and put this in context because you are in Nigeria, and I have to be very honest with you. I wasn't very familiar with the details of Nigeria and sort of the background. So, but I've done quite a bit of research, and I think there's some really interesting things that people should know, and I think it will help to ground them before we sort of get into this. So I just want to start with the fact that Nigeria is a country in West Africa. Its land borders are with Benin to the west, Cameroon and Chad to the east, and also Niger to the north. Interestingly, it's the most populous country in Africa, and approximately 200 million people. So Nigeria's economy is considered one of the fastest growing in the world. Since there's a large consuming population, it's considered the regional center of West Africa. There's also a variety of spoken languages. It's the third largest speaking English population on Earth. And it is a democracy, although it's sort of been some shifts or attempts between military rule and democratic rule. Abuja is the capital city, and the legal system in Nigeria is based on English common law, Islamic law in its northern states, and also there's some traditional laws. Unfortunately, many people live in poverty in Nigeria, and the life expectancy is rather low. So I had seen a statistic of 54, but actually, Avril, you said that it's about 45 even. Is that true?
Yeah, that's the latest statistic.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to begin with you, and I'd like to ask you about what got you started in forensics. What was your interest, and what was that little switch that went off for you and said, "Oh, I've got to do this"?
I was about 8 years old when I watched some FBI files, and I was so curious about what was going on. So for me, I was curious about the forensic science of solving crime, and from that time, I was determined to study forensic science. remember my mom wanted me to do medicine because I was doing quite well at school, and the average Nigerian parent wants their child to be a lawyer, or a doctor. But I had to convince her. At some point, I told her, "Do you know what? I'll work in hospitals. Don't worry."
Oops.
You know, I mean, it's the best decision I ever made because it's my passion, and that's how it started. And I feel fulfilled. I mean, every forensic scientist feels fulfilled. So it's
Yeah,
just,
interesting. So, for the people who are listening in, I think so. One of the interesting things was, I mean, we had never met before. I mean, this was really a thing, and I'll give credit to LinkedIn because that's where I saw your posts. And I think the thing, I had seen some of your previous posts where you were running training and things like that, and I thought, oh, cool, somebody's doing training in, Nigeria and other places. But then it hit me when I had seen some of your writing and your articles that you are actually a sort of a very unique and special person in Nigeria because forensics is in its infancy in Nigeria. Is that true?
if there's anything below infancy, maybe it's still in the belly or something. So it's still very, I mean, people know about the concept of forensic. There's interest in it. But when it comes to implementation or the use of it, it's very, very, very infancy stage.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially in the police here in North America and Canada and the US. So forensics is a big deal. People love the shows, even in the general public, they are very, very aware of forensics and what it is. And so what about in just the common people of Nigeria? What's their familiarity and what about the police? How familiar are they there?
For the people, because we all watch CSI Miami and we watch the crime channel and things like that, we have access to those things. Everyone know about forensic. I mean, a lot of young people, especially, know about forensic. When there's a high-profile murder in Nigeria, you hear people on social or talking and on social media saying, "Oh, bring in forensic." So it's well known within the citizens, but when it comes to law enforcement, I mean, they are not totally clueless. Their leaders know about it. Some of them have heard about it, but it's still a very small percentage of them. They actually have a forensic lab in the police. But it's been abandoned for some time. I was there last month, and I went there last month to just check out things. But they have this lab, but it's really feeling the effects of this labs. We really using these labs to convict criminals, for example. That's where the problem is, and that's where that's where we have the questions.
So if people aren't, let's say, for example, especially the people who are on the front lines or the first people to get to the crime scene, the first responders, there's got to be all kinds of issues you're having with, for example, contamination.
Yeah, a lot. There's a whole lot of that. A lot of people do not know that they're not supposed to touch the body. In the Nigerian culture, people are very protective of their bodies. They don't want you to touch it. I mean, even having an autopsy done is a problem. I worked in the coroner's office for 2.5 years, and it was war sometimes. Like family fighting to avoid an autopsy, but it's law in Lagos State, for example. So contamination problem. A lot when there's an incident, everyone just go there. They want to see what's going on. They want to take things, and it's all messy. They are looting, breaking, or destroying, depending on the type of crime. So you go to a scene that is totally compromised, and sometimes I've been to scenes that I'll just tell whoever the police client that there's absolutely nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
So it's still a major problem. It's still actually a major problem, but with more awareness, it's improving.
There was a story that I read, and I don't know if it's true, but you can tell me. But it had to do with a theft and a print, palm print. Okay,
Yes.
is that true? Okay, maybe you can tell the story.
Yeah. So when I got a call and the police and the company called, and they said they had a fingerprint or full palm print on the wall, and they wanted us to come and help them lift it and analyze it. So I got my guys, and they called me from there. And said, well, when they got there, the head of security told them that so they asked, oh, no one has touched it. And they said, oh, nobody has removed anything. But what he did is he called everyone in the office to put their palm on the palm print to check whose palm fits. So that was the first line of investigation, looking for whose palm fits perfectly to the print. But obviously, maybe more than one person had this fit. So immediately we told them, I had to speak to them, I had to educate the police. He actually genuinely did not know. I had to tell him, you cannot lift the print is already compromised and you can't really lift it. Well, he was telling me clearly it's clear, you can still see it. But I was telling him it's I don't want to waste time. I don't want to waste, my materials as well. So
Yeah,
we still see things like that.
and it would seem like a logical thing where, hey, well, let's just compare the print to the people, right? But unfortunately, you're destroying the evidence, right? So yeah, that's an interesting point. There was an article that I read from you recently, and I think you had posted this on LinkedIn, and it had to do with setting up a forensic laboratory in Nigeria. So I didn't realize you said that the police do have like a form of a lab or whatever. But of course, Nigeria is a large territorially or geographically, it's a large country. So is Lagos sort of the economic center of Nigeria?
Yeah, that Lagos is the economic center of Nigeria. It's basically where many things happen. So it's the only state that actually has a forensic lab.
I see.
So it has its own Lagos State DNA lab, and then the police lab is also here, although it's not functional. The one where we call Alagbon. There's another one somewhere in Lagos. I've not been to that one. I don't really know much about it, but like I said, I've not really much about cases that has been done there.
So I mean, so what would you, in terms of setting up a laboratory, it may seem obvious, but to you, how do you see it making a difference what are the advantages in making a difference in the criminal justice system?
One thing about crime in Nigeria, people in Nigeria commit crimes they commit crimes, so they don't cover up crimes. They just do it. So, many people even know who has committed a crime. For example, rape is quite common here. Sexual assault. It's random people don't sexually assault people here. It's someone known to you, most likely. So it's a suspect, So people do this thing. So when we have forensics, it just makes it easy to link the suspect back to the crime scene or the victim. So, because for example, with guns and ballistics, for example, the average Nigerian criminal would not throw away his gun. When they go to throw away their guns in the river, they keep it because we are quite possessive by nature. So we would keep such a gun. They would not throw away a gun. So when you find such gun, it's just easy to match, and that's one of the painful things, because it's going to be so easy to successfully do forensic analysis here because of the limitation, and especially with exposures. There are a lot of people that would commit crimes like this are not exposed to CSI, for example. So they don't know how to cover their crimes. So it's basically very easy if we pursue that line of forensics.
Right. So if you're not, so for example, a lot of the evidence that's being presented in court today is obviously not going to be, physical evidence, DNA, all that sort of thing. So what is mostly presented at court?
There's a lot of hearsay evidence, or someone said something. It's mostly circumstantial. So it's confessional statements, very common as well. So, but you don't really see much physical evidence, but a lot of circumstantial, a lot of confessional statements, which has a lot of issues. People are reported being threatened to confess. And it also hits a lot of roadblocks in court because people would confess even live TV, but when they go to court, they tell the judge, "Well, I confessed under duress." So when you have physical evidence, it just it helps you avoid all that legal complications. So that's basically what we're doing.
So what about trials in Nigeria? Are they very quick? Do they take a very long time? How does that work?
Trials in Nigeria, sometimes 5 years, 10 years, it takes so long. But when you have your evidence, it makes it easy. So last year there was a series of rape incidents in one state in Nigeria because they found CCTV email footages and confessional statement, and the suspect was found at one of the scene, and so it was easy. Or in less than a year, he's been convicted, and I think he's going to be sentenced sometime soon. That's because they had evidence. But a lot of cases, there's no evidence to back up. So it makes it difficult for the judge. So the judge just keeps adjourning, and basically they investigate the case in court. So the judge starts asking questions that does not even have an answer. So they adjourn the case for more evidence or more witnesses and things like that. So it takes relatively long time for a case to actually get to the end, for the trial to be completed, which
Okay.
is just because of mainly because there's no evidence, or there's no strong evidence to convict the person.
And now, in your case, because you are collecting evidence and that sort of thing, are you called upon to testify at times, or what's your situation regarding evidence that you collect?
Yeah, I do collect evidence, I analyze it, and I get called upon to testify.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So it's okay, fairly regular, but you're
yeah.
saying that they can take quite a long
No, no,
time.
it's not regular. I mean, there's a case I did about 2013. Sometimes they would call me, oh, they call you to come soon, and it has not happened till now. So it's not certain, and that's if the judge actually believes in that evidence. There are situations where the judge does not believe, so the judge doesn't need you. If the judge does not believe in that evidence, so they won't. They will ask what's forensic, what is, so how does this work? How, so they don't believe in. So they don't. So that's one of the big problems we still have. The judges do not understand forensic evidence, so they would dismiss it.
You, I want to ask you some questions about some of the cases or investigations that I mentioned up front. But you also said that, for example, sexual assault and rape are very common there. So is that the majority of what you're working on?
Yeah, I've been concentrating a lot on sexual assault. I mean, I had to help before 2015. They didn't actually have any plan for rape, but they called on me then and designed a rape kit. So the first sexual assault evidence, and the only one they're still using now in your state. So I designed kits because bringing it from other countries is expensive. So I had to make the kit, and I had to train them on how to use it to collect evidence. And now we have a DNA lab. So it's easy to collect the sample and you'd get it tested at the DNA lab. So, it's one of the things I've had to do, and to help with such case. And so for me now, it's because that's a big case, and it's, for me, it's also kind of important to address such, especially because we have a DNA where, it can be tested. I usually
I
would
see.
help. Yeah. So last weekend, I had to run a training for the doctors in Lagos State with the Ministry of Public Health, teaching them about how to collect the sound, like a refresher training, to just teach them, help them learn how to collect the samples appropriately, how to preserve it before it gets to the lab, and chain of custody and all of that. So then the judges start seeing more of those evidence in court. It's awakening something in them. So, they know that a rape case is not about, it's definitely him. It's definitely him, and more evidence, DNA evidence, to prove that it was him. So,
One thing
yes.
you mentioned training, and so one thing I'm amazed about, and I've seen some videos and different posts that you've done. So you do a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff. So I'm amazed by all the different things because in one video you're doing footprints, then you're doing the sexual assault kits, and then you're doing, you've written on ballistics, and then so you're doing a lot of different things there. So I think you're kind of unique in that regard because you're touching on so many different things. What you run training courses, and I don't know how regularly you do them. Are they open, or are they just mostly for the police to help get them more familiar with these methods?
Yeah, I mean, I do for the police safety. I do for them. I've done because the way the Nigerian system works, most of this thing, The security supervisor, for example, would most likely be the first responder. So it's easier if they really want justice. It's easier for them to collect the sample as quick as possible if they have the material, and I work with the police and get this sample processed. So usually it's open to security professionals, police as well, and lawyers also attend the training. Oh, I did a special one for the lawyers for them to actually understand what the crime scene is, what a forensic analysis is. So when they see it in court, they can, it's easier for them to understand. So I just run different trainings for different people, but forensics is just me, understand it, know what it is. So when you see it in court, if someone says I did fingernail scrapings, you're not going to start wondering what would you do with fingernail scrapings. For example, someone said, "Oh, I did a fiber analysis." You're not wondering how can fiber analysis do anything. So it's basically just getting people to understand it, know it, and this training. They've attended training and they've gone there open to study forensic science. There's a manpower shortage with forensic science. We have very few forensic scientists in Nigeria, like very, very few. So when people have attended my training and they're lawyers and they pick the interest. If we have more people that know about it, it's easier when it finally gets opened or when the country finally aligns. We have the manpower to keep it running because one person cannot do everything. That's why I stick my neck out a lot. So,
Yeah.
at least pass the knowledge and pass the knowledge is key and the awareness.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna come back to some of the work that you're doing, but I'd like to ask you about the Dana plane crash in 2012 in Lagos. And
Yeah.
can you tell us about how you got some of the activities and kind of what the scene was? I have seen some video on that, and a couple of points that I'd like you to hit on. One is that I was amazed by how many people were in the area where the plane was crashed. It was just people had their cameras and they were filming, and it was just a big issue with crowd control. But
Yeah.
maybe just tell us how you got involved with that.
So crowd control is a huge problem in Nigeria. When there's an incident like that, everybody wants to see. And so in 2012, I was actually working with the coroner's office. So I was a forensic investigator. So I was going to crime scene, working with them with autopsies and things like that. Then plane crashed, and that was the first time ever that in Nigeria that they've actually done a mass disaster investigation. You could imagine it was total chaos. So I was new to the country. Nobody knew what to do. So at the point, I had to use notes from my university. So it's like, for example, the odontology identification, I had to get my notes from uni, and the dental charting thing, I had to design it and take state on it. And, it was just heated. And then we're coming up with DNA, the DNA forms. I had to design it in like one day. We had developed a process for storage in one day, a process for collecting evidence in one DNA evidence in one day, everything. It was chaotic. And we finally, got into it. And my job mainly was collect DNA samples, collecting DNA samples, and then I had to help with odontology. So I used my knowledge from school, and we had the head of the odontology department there at the Lake State Hospital. I had to tell him to chat. So we told people, if you have a dental record for any of the family, because most people want beyond recognition. So we get them to get dental records. So we're able to match at least about 48 people a dental record. And that was the first time. And then, I had to collect almost about 500 samples, DNA samples from both the family to help with the disease, because it was about 155 bodies. And it was working day and night, and then we have to collect toxicology samples, and it's just getting all the samples and then getting them tested and developing profiles, and then matching to the victim, the family relatives to the victim, and finally, identifying the body. It was about 3 months of extreme hard work. We're working from about 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. sometimes. There were days that we only had like 2 hours, 3 hours sleep. But today is one of the best things I think I've done in my life. I mean, being able, because I was one actually, because we didn't have a lot of people. So I was one actually had to handle our death certificate to family at some point. And, being able to give them back their family and, people, like I told you earlier on, Nigerians, they want their body back. So being able to give people their body back, I felt so fulfilled. I felt so proud to be part of the team. And I was so grateful to my boss. I was new, I was so young, but he had so much faith in me, and he literally allowed me just do so much. It was, and that sparked something in me, and I realized I was in the right career. And,
Yeah.
and later on, after I did that, I approached the Accident Investigation Bureau. I approached the commissioner then, and I told him, "Can I help you?" Because I had all the injury pattern of the victims and all of that, and I got the manifesto for the airline, and I had the design of the plane. So I approached them to, let's try and construct the incident to see where the crash probably happened, because we had a couple of people that were burnt at all, like they didn't die from the crash immediately the crash. So we reconstructed, able to at first when I approached him, he didn't take my report. It was like, oh, we don't need it. And then a few months later, I got an email from him saying, can I have that report and things you did? Because I actually worked so hard on it, on the reconstruction. I did it alone. I had to read books to help me, I had to speak to one or two people, put a lot of work into it, and it was dismissed at first. And then sent me an email, the commissioner, and said, please, can I have that reconstruction back? So, and then he sent me an email saying it was part of the things they submitted to the international excellent people, and it was actually quite a good job. So very appreciative later. So it's just the drive. I mean, that's basically what I did with that. But contamination is, when that incident happened, the crowd, even when the bodies were brought for autopsy, the crowd, it was just everywhere. Like, we had to do so much. There was just too many people. I was trying to collect DNA sample, and I kept on telling them, I don't need people here. I'm getting DNA sample from the relatives. I need people talking and pouring saliva. I'm trying to explain contamination. Only one person in with me at one time. Everyone is charged with emotion. I had to be so calm. I had to watch people cry and, be so strong. Just to, ensure I didn't break down. It was very emotional. But even at the point of collecting those DNA samples, the crowd were there, and it was a whole fight. We had to send police in to protect at some point. But it was a stress that was well worth it. One of the proudest things I've done.
For those that are just listening or are not familiar with the plane crash, my understanding of that, when it was an MD-83 aircraft, and there was a problem with the engines, and basically one engine had failed, and then they were trying to get to the airport, and on the approach, the second engine had failed, and they tried to recover, but it didn't work out. So they ended up, actually there was some. I believe there were a few people who died also that were not on the plane, that were hit by the aircraft in their homes or something like that.
We had that as well.
Very tragic event.
I think we had about 8 people that a family, and I remember Dana pretty much so much. I remember their names. That's how much, I remember everything about Dana Play-Crash.
Yeah, there's footage on YouTube for those that are interested. You can look, and it's just it looks like a very complex type of disaster to be dealing with, just because there's so much stuff happening and so many things around. Let me ask you about were they police or federal agents? So maybe they're the same thing, that were killed in Nasarawa State. What's the background there? Or what can you tell us about that particular case and your activities there?
Yeah, I got a call where my boss then called me. I'd actually left last week, then no longer with the coroner's, because I wanted to exploit it more, and invited me to join him on that, mainly for the DNA identification. So they were killed over here before. I think it was exactly to that day we went to Nasarawa to them identified. It was emotional as well for me, and because these people had died for over a year, they were not kept, they were not preserved, and we had to do that. We had to collect the DNA sample, conduct autopsies on them, and to identify them. So it was, for me, I mean, it's one of those job I would always remember, because I had to work in very extreme conditions. And we're able to identify some of them. I mean, we just had a few bodies, and collect DNA, and at least some people got their family back after
Yeah.
a year of not knowing which is which, because they were also they were decomposed, so you wouldn't really know who is who. So we had to help them, get them back, and it's always joyful for Nigerians to just get our body back.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
What about things like arms dealing, gangs, things like that? Are gangs a problem in Lagos or in some of the bigger cities?
I mean, we have gangs and cultism and things like that around. Um, but I wouldn't. It depends. So with the crimes, it depends on the location. So we don't find them in certain locations, and they are prevalent in certain locations. But in the big city, in Lagos and maybe Abuja, things like that, you'd have the normal gangs, the cultists, the hoodlums or area boys, like we call them here. Like I said, in Nigeria, people that commit crime, they are mostly known. It's only maybe armed robbers, you don't even know their identity. But if you do a bit of an investigation, they are known people. So, and they will never throw away their weapon. So it's easy to just identify them and locate them and things like that.
Yeah, okay.
In the northern part of Nigeria, there are issues with terrorism, banditry, communal clashes, and things like that.
I see.
Yes, but down in the south, we don't have terror. We've not experienced a terrorist activities yet. But what would mainly face here is maybe robbery, hand robbery, snack thefts, and things like that.
Okay.
Then sexual assault is the general issue, and gender-based violence.
Okay. In around 2017, you also worked on a couple of like fire type scenes. So one was called the House on the Rock Church fire, and the other one was Friesland Campina fire.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a lot of information on the Friesland Campina fire, but maybe you can just briefly talk about those two
Mhm.
particular cases there.
I mean, so the first land campaigner was unique because I got a call on Saturday. I'd done some job for them in 2016, fingerprints. They had some incident, so they called me and had a fire. They called me Saturday that they had a fire on Friday. That they had some investigators from Poland that had come from Poland, some forensic investigators. But that Saturday evening, they couldn't find the cause of crimes. The way things happen in Nigeria is a bit different. So sometimes you need someone on the ground to understand how these things work. So they called me and said, "Can you come and just have a look?" And then, so I got there that day. I met the investigators from Holland, and they showed me everything they had done. And I mean, at some point, they were wondering why they called the Nigerians coming when they are there and things like that. I mean, I just told them, let me just have a look at the scene. One of the first thing is I got to this. So by the time I got to the scene, they had removed it's a factory. So they had removed all the burnt equipment downstairs, but they were in the same position as they were inside the building. So the first thing I noticed was where the suit was actually quite intense. So I asked for, the part of the equipment where that particular place. So basically, in about 2 minutes, I literally spotted what caused the fire in about 2 minutes. So in the end, I remember the forensic investigators from Holland, they took my car, they took pictures with me because they were surprised because they'd been there for about 2 days and they were struggling. In fact, when I met him, the two investigators, they were quite frustrated because I mean it was not a huge fire. It just happened in a room, and then women had spotted it because I had to just look at the marking in the room and asked for that particular place. So I was able to trace it immediately and found exactly where they. And when I interviewed the people managing the equipment, they actually confirmed that that place was actually given had issues and they had reported several times. They didn't know anything about it. And then he actually confirmed that he actually saw this fire from there. But he was afraid to talk before. So for me, my sign was good. But I mean, the House of the Rock fire was one of the biggest challenges of my life. You know, I flew all the way to Abuja that day and I go, why did I accept to do this? Was the It was the biggest crime scene, and you know, I went alone with just a person, and I felt like going back to Lagos and saying I can't do it. I spent 8 days on that scene, and I spent 3 months putting a report together. You know, but
Yeah.
when fire, we had fire people come in and had to explaining the result because fire victims of fire incidents. I don't know if it's like that in any other part of the world, but they usually don't accept. I mean, you have to literally explain the science and everything to them to convince or to make them understand that that was the cause of the fire. You know, they're very emotional, especially when it's negligence or if it's a negligent act that it's, you know, because class thing, the good thing was I didn't read about it before I went to Abuja. So it was a whole lot of conspiracy theories. So I actually was a very objective mind. But the scene was chaotic. It was all over the place. I had to keep dig things, move things. I had more people in to help me because it was so much breeze. And you know, after 8 days, I felt like I'd gotten all the answers I needed,
Yeah.
and I was exhausted by day 8, and I was literally happy that at least it was a lot of pulling wires, removing things, and you know, before we finally found, you know, we're able to move things, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
it's one of the things that reminds you about the need to be quite patient as forensics and investigator. You know, it reminds you that patience is key to get an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring up something here. This is an article that you had written called Forensic Science and the Law. And one of the interesting things is that you say that there's presently no provision for forensic science in Nigerian law. And I was wondering if you
Yeah.
could explain that so people can understand, because here, you know, like in North America or in Europe, you know, everyone wants physical evidence, hard science or whatever. So how is the well, can you tell me how is the law currently written, or how is it currently phrased?
There's nothing. The only state in Nigeria that has something a bit forensic is in Lagos, the coroner's law. But in other part of the state, there's nothing to accommodate forensic science, basically. So the coroner's law only covers the autopsies and death investigation, but we don't really have any law that, you know, works for forensic science. So that's still a huge problem. We don't actually have a standard law for forensics, or any law has actually accommodated forensic science. That's one of the reasons I keep advocating for the legal system to understand forensics. I had to lobby my way to present at the last Bar Association annual general meeting. I had to lobby for them to give me some to talk about forensic science. So it's when the legal system, when the legal community learn about forensic science, can start to consider it. It might take some time, but at some point, I'm hoping they get the message.
Yeah, for sure. So I want people to know too that, and I'll add that over here, but you've done quite a bit of writing. There's several articles in, I guess it's an online journal or newspaper or something called The Vanguard. So if
Yeah.
you go to Vanguard, ngr.com, let me see, I'll scroll some of the different articles that you've done there. But you've touched on many different areas in
Yeah.
forensics, you know, and how it can be beneficial, you know, in Nigeria and in the justice system that you have there. So let me ask you this: what do you see as the current or one of the most important things that could happen in Nigeria that would help just establish better forensic science? Is it people? Is it equipment? Is it education? Maybe it's just education. You tell me.
I think it's a combination of everything. So for forensic science to kick off in Nigeria, the first and most important thing is the political will. The political will. So the government needs to understand that we can't keep convicting people to long life sentences and jail terms without any concrete evidence, without, oh, someone said something that cannot even be verified. So they need to understand the need for it. And then we need to now start thinking about training people effectively, like adequately, setting up labs. Nigeria is huge. We have 6 states and the capital. That's 37 different states. So we need to set up, a forensic science lab, maybe in the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, and then let the law accommodate forensic science. The law needs to be in tandem with forensic science. They need to understand, all the judges need to be trained, then the police as well. They need to be trained, or they should have maybe a system whereby the forensic lab is handled by private people but reporting to the police, so it's even more independent. Like, I think that's something that's coming up in the US. So it's important. So there's still a whole lot to do, but the starting point is first having the willpower, to the political will, and then working on the criminal justice system, because the criminal justice system, I say this all the time. If the criminal justice system works in Nigeria, a lot of our problems will be solved. A lot of our problems. They need to work to ensure it's accommodated in the law, and then start thinking about training people and developing labs and things for improving upon labs we already have and ensure they are working. We have a very beautiful lab. Police lab is, they have quite a lot of things, but they just need to get them working and,
Yeah.
get them updated maybe, and then working, and, let them be useful. Like I always say to police, and when I'm running this training or seminars, by the time the court starts asking for forensic evidence in a murder case, for example, or in a stressful case, the police will set up, the police will ensure the labs are working. So when the legal system starts to ask questions, then this will work. So that's basically what we need now. Are you there? I think I lost you.
Are you there? Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're back.
I wanted to mention that you have a company called EEA Forensics. So, and for which you do training, you provide consultancy, you do a number of different things.
Yeah.
And what is the next thing you're working on? And I don't mean just cases, but I just mean, what are your goals? Because you're obviously an advocate of forensic science and you're doing a lot. But
Yeah.
what are you working on? What's your next goal for helping to push this along in Nigeria?
So something in January, I had a thought, and I said, you know what? Every year, I want to take up 2 cases pro bono, so free of charge. I'm going to help people that may be wrongfully convicted to reinvestigate their cases using forensics, or people that are probably awaiting trial. Because what we see in Nigeria is someone is arrested today, is charged to court tomorrow for a big crime such as murder without no evidence. So I decided to help to that, maybe two cases a year. So in February, I went to the correction center, the juvenile correction center, and I met these 2 boys. And their story, was very touching. And I've been handling those 2 cases. And I'm sure I had to go to the crime scene after a year. I had to do a lot. And the police have been quite amazed at how much they missed out on when they initially investigated the case. And I'm basically helping the police understand that they're just basic investigative steps or investigative processes that could have actually prevented someone from being in prison for a year, that was missed out or not, or maybe they didn't know what to do. So presently, we're working on the case to ensure that we try to get the right justice. So the right person is convicted rather than the wrong person being incarcerated. So that's something very dear to me. And
Okay.
I've not finished both cases, but I feel so good doing it, and putting my resources, my time, and most weekends, that's what I'm trying to do. my spare time, I'm thinking about how to close this case. I'm interviewing people on the phone, all those basic investigation processes I was missed out. Like, there are people that could have been interviewed that would have helped to confirm alibis, for example, were never interviewed, and new evidences are coming to light. So for me, that's my main focus. I was able to get a lot of lawyers that are willing to help pro bono as well. So I have lawyers that are helping pro bono as well. And it's just basically, apart from helping someone get justice, it also brings forensic science to the limelight. So I mean, we did a polygraph on this case. Everybody was surprised. They'd never seen a polygraph. They didn't even know what a polygraph was. So one of the things I did was a polygraph. There was a case I had to do forensic artist. I had to get artists to basically tell the artist what to do. Basically, simple things to find someone. So those kind of things, I'm putting skills in. Getting the materials are very expensive. But I have some great friends. I've met some great people on LinkedIn, that have helped me get materials over and things like that. So I mean, that for me, that's something that makes me feel so good.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you about that because you studied abroad, and I was wondering if you had connections outside that could potentially assist you, and yeah, so I'm hoping that you do.
Some of my lecturers. I have a lecturer. She used to be my lecturer at South Bank. She's always helpful every time I called. She was in my department, so she's always nice. And every time I reach out to her, I've met some wonderful people on LinkedIn as well, and I always get the help and supplies and on time, and I'm working hard to make supplies of basic things like evidence bags available. So I make evidence bags now. I produce it and tapes as well, and so it's easier to do those things here in Nigeria. Hopefully I'll get it to West Africa, so it's easier to get supplies within West Africa.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if again, I'm hoping that maybe we can have some other people maybe reach out to you on LinkedIn or whatever, if they can ever assist and with equipment or whatever it might be. Well, I'll tell you what, we're getting on to about 45 minutes, but I think, like I said, I've been very impressed with the work that you've been doing, and especially with the way you've been promoting forensic science in Nigeria. And you clearly have a challenge ahead of you. This is no doubt. But I think your posts and your articles are. I mean, I think at least from the outside in, I think they're making an impact. And I mean, I want to wish you all the very best. And if ever I or contacts or whatever can help with what you're doing to help give you more visibility or whatever it might be, I think it's fantastic. So I want to wish you all the very, very best in your endeavor here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right.
I'm appreciative of this platform, and I'm glad you got to use people and talk about different things, forensic part of the world, and hopefully collaborate to make my country better and to extract justice. It's sad what you see here. And that's one of the reasons I've chosen not to be quiet, to keep speaking up and to keep getting those articles out so the policymakers can see it and understand why I need a change. So I'm grateful for this platform, and I'm glad to meet you as well.
Yeah, we've got to get you out on some more like webinars, and now it's everybody's going virtual now anyway. So I think we've got to get you speaking more about the challenges that you face there. And I'm sure there are other people facing similar things. There must be. There must be. So, well, look, I want to say thank you very much, and wish you all the best. And hang back here. I'm just going to make a few announcements, and then I'll come back and I'll just chat with you just for a few minutes. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, everyone. Well, that does it for episode 8. Again, I just want to remind everybody about the IABPA conferences coming up. Also, don't forget about the photogrammetry for forensics course. That is going to be coming up October 27th and 28th. And also, the forensics talks is not going to be next week. It's going to be the following Thursday at 2 p.m. Look for an announcement coming up at that time. on that note, I want to say thank you, everyone, for paying attention. And also, again, thank you to Avril for joining us. I think it's wonderful that we can reach out internationally like that. And we shall see you soon.